Welcome into the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. I am Ben McKee, and I am joined by the great Will Heflin, former Tennessee baseball pitcher who signed as a two-way star for the Vols, but ended up being an excellent number 11 and baseball pitcher. Will, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Ben. I signed as a pitcher and then was asked to start hitting after my first semester. And then I hit for one semester. And then when that coaching staff left, I just went back to just pitching.
I did not know that. I did not know that you signed as a pitcher. I learn something new every day.
Yeah. Which that's a whole different conversation why I spent an entire fall not hitting. And then, you get back from Christmas break and you've got less than 6 weeks before the season starts, and you pick up a bat and go try to hit SEC pitching. It's not the greatest plan, not making excuses.
Was that the first time that you had hit since your senior season?
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. How many SEC at-bats do you own in your career? Do you know?
I had like 35 for the whole year. I would say 10 to 15 of them were SEC.
Any hits in SEC play?
Yeah. One off your boy, Kyle Wright. We share that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Any home runs?
No home runs. I had a game-winning sac fly against Michael Byrne, the Florida All-American closer at the time.
Yeah.
To win a Friday night game. The Vols won that series. It was the only SEC series we won against the national champion Gators of 2017.
Was that the game where
was that week
in Gainesville?
Yeah, that was in Gainesville.
Was that when Jay Charleston made that great catch in center?
No, that would have been
19.
Yeah,
that's right.
Ricky Martinez hit the go ahead homer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that was 19.
Well, speaking of go ahead homers, Stone Lawless thought he caught a go ahead home run on Saturday afternoon in Athens. Poor Stone. I feel bad for Stone. But what's that?
He thought that ball was way gone.
Yeah, I thought it was gone off the bat. Of course, I did not make the swing, so he would certainly feel and know better than I. But just watching on television, it looked gone off the bat. I perked up immediately, and we didn't get one of those replays that Major League Baseball has that kind of can show exactly where the baseball was going to land. But I think it was going to get over the wall. Well, did you think it was going to get over the wall based off of when they zoomed in on the outfielder making the catch?
It was odd because he jumped up and caught it above the fence, but I don't think he was on the fence. He was like a step in front of it when he came down. So it either would have went out or off the top of the wall. I say it was a robbed home run. We can just say it was going to get out. If that makes us feel better. I don't think Georgia cares. They caught it. So they can.
And I don't think it makes Tennessee feel better either, because it was a sour ending to what I thought was a pretty good weekend for the Vols. I thought they actually played pretty well throughout the course of the weekend. Of course, they did not play perfect, but this is college baseball. This is amateur baseball, after all. It's not going to be perfect, as Will always correctly explains. I thought that, we'll just start big picture. I thought that Tennessee played 3 of their best games of the season, quite frankly, and I thought they took a step forward. I think that they look like a better baseball team than they did a couple of weeks ago when they lost to Kent State, or even as frustrating of a Sunday loss as they suffered to Wright State the week prior. I thought it looked like an improved baseball team throughout the weekend. I thought they were taking strides forward, and that still remains the same. It just feels a little bit different as we sit here and react to the weekend, because it was a very sour ending that spoiled what was overall a good weekend up until that point.
Yeah, the theme for me was growth, and it's going to be a challenge to for the team to see it that way as well, like you mentioned, because of the way you spin it or because of the way it ended. But going into the weekend, if you would have said, 1-2, I'd have been like, I would like to win the series, but that's not detrimental, right? And the way it played out, you've got a 5-0 lead on Sunday. You think you took the lead in the ninth. Your expectations and hopes change as the situation changes. So that is what makes it sour. But that doesn't take away the fact that they played extremely clean baseball for 3 straight days. Defense, phenomenal. The at-bats, consistently more competitive, way better, way improved. Starting with your boy, Blaine Brown, putting together some unbelievable at-bats, taking pitches, and it all started with his first at-bat of the weekend. He absolutely smoked the line drive to left field, and that got him right. It led to him being on the baseball long enough to keep it fair when he hit the home run, pull side. It led to a couple pull side. I think he had a double as well as some singles that were just hammered to right field. And it all starts with that oppo swing to left. That was beautiful. But overall, the at-bats were better, more consistently. There weren't as many like quick, just completely dud innings. And then lastly, I kind of hate throwing this word out here because I have a wrestle with myself all the time, but the fight, right? The ability to punch back. And that's so result based, right? Grimmer hits a solo home run. It's a great baseball swing. He took a pitch middle away and hit it over the left field wall. Is that fight? No, it's a good baseball swing. You know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to judge whether a team is trying. Like, you can be trying just as hard and go 3 up, 3 down with 3 strikeouts, and we're saying, oh, this team doesn't have any fight. You know what I mean? So I hate to throw that out there, but there is something to groups that are never out of a baseball game, right? And that is a great quality to have. You can't really coach it. We can sit here and say we need fight and we need pride and we need all this and all that. We saw it last year. A team full of really talented kids just could not seem to punch back when they needed to at certain times. This team kind of seeming like they can. They certainly will play anybody and everybody a close competitive ball game. And I saw a lot of growth for a very young team, which is the positive to take away. The negative would be, guess what? You've got a young team. You've got a young head coach. You've got to learn how to win on a Sunday against a TTK. You know what a TTK is, Ben and listeners? A tough to kill. You knew Georgia was going to get back in the game. Pat Mahomes, TTK, tough to kill. Doesn't matter what the score is. Fourth quarter, you know it's going to be right there at the end of the game, right? Your guys like Steph Curry, LeBron, and basketball, TTK, super tough to kill. Baseball teams in the SEC, really good programs, Tennessee being one of them, Arkansas. Georgia's in that mix now, right? Mississippi State, LSU, obviously, TTK. It is tough to kill them. And especially when you're on the road, there's a couple things I think everybody wishes they had back, but overall, there's no moral victories. But just looking at the entire picture of where this team is headed, I've got a lot to build on from the weekend.
I agree. It was a very frustrating end to the weekend. Don't get me wrong. We're not making excuses. We're not into the moral victories. We're not in for the participation trophies. I think I speak for you when I say this as well. But when we assess the team, we're looking long term. Wouldn't you agree?
100%.
We're looking towards the NCAA tournament. We're looking towards a potential Omaha run. We're looking at, will this team be playing its best baseball when it matters most? And as frustrating as Sunday was, as many or a handful, whatever word you want to use, mistakes there were over the weekend, they got better this weekend. This team it may be slowly, but it is surely getting better. And I think you're seeing that week to week. And it is a young group. I know people don't want to hear that on the offensive side, but it is a young group. And they're slowly starting to show signs of life, which is what's important. And I know people don't want to hear this either, but you know what, Will? That's the mark of a good coaching staff. I know Josh Elander's already been fired, and he's the worst coach on the planet, and this and that and the other. I know a lot of people were upset with Josh Elander over the weekend, but his team is slowly getting better. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still very early in the season. They're 1 week down of SEC play out of 10 weeks. How much better do they look here in 4 or 5 weeks at the beginning of April? Like, they've got to continue to keep getting better, but the early signs are that they are kind of inching their way along, that they are getting better, which is the mark of a good coaching staff. So a very frustrating ending, but overall, I think it was a nice step in the right direction in terms of projecting where they'll be when it matters most. And I agree with what you were saying about the whole fighting part of it. I know that kind of feels weird, like that should never be something that you really have to talk about. But as you said, last season on Sundays, there were times where it's like, man, where's that grit and determination that's needed? It's not that they weren't playing without effort. I don't think effort was an issue last year. I don't think toughness was an issue last year, at least when you look at kind of the individual players on last year's team. But as a collective, not that they were lazy, not that they were soft, but it I think we talked about this a bunch last season. It's just it wasn't where it needed to be, right? In terms of the grit and determination. It was there, but not to the level it's needed to win on Sundays in the SEC. And obviously there's you can't really say that this team hasn't until they go win on a Sunday and win a series on the road. But when that's questioned throughout last season, when even on the Sundays this season against Kent State, against Wright State, it's like, man, why did it just seem so dull on Sundays when with Kent State you have the series on the line, and with Wright State you know they're going to come back Sunday swinging. You know it's a good program, and for you to come out so dull, like why is that a thing? So, yes, we're not into participation trophies or gold stickers or anything like that, but to me, the reason I think it was important to see them fight and battle through adversity, and they overcame a deficit, and then even after they get the Krenzel, Grimmer's able to come back with his home run swing and cut the deficit to begin the ninth. Like, those to me are just all good signs. It's not that we're trying to make excuses, but in terms of the overall growth and the overall projection of where this team is going, I think those are good signs, even in the midst of a very frustrating weekend.
Yes. Signs of TTK for the Vols. You need a lot of it, even on the road. And Georgia made the play, the last play of the game. They made it, so they won the game. But it would have been real easy after Georgia threw that punch to make it 7-5 it was, or 8-5, something like that. Mm-hmm. For that, okay, yeah, they took the rubber match, whatever. But no, there were some punches back. Now, like I said, you had your 4-hole make a good swing on a baseball, and then. But here's what I'll say: Levi Clark, who struggled a ton, right, gets a base hit with 2 outs in the ninth, nobody on. That's TTK, right? Super easy. Nobody's gonna blame him if he's the last out. You know what I mean? With nobody on base and 2 outs in the ninth, they're gonna be like, oh, he was struggling coming into it, whatever. He gets a base hit, extends it, and then Stone Lawless off the bench as a pinch hitter. Keep in mind, he's technically he's your backup catcher for that day. So it took a lot of stones to put Stone in there. You know what I mean? That's not something necessarily Vitello was comfortable doing. Now I know they have Grinlinger on the roster as well. They feel comfortable with him, so that frees you up a little bit. You just gotta, just in case that thing ends up going 12, 13, 14 innings, like, you don't want to be left without a catching option. But anyways, he comes in and puts a good swing on it, and it didn't work out. And I know he looked foolish, but what happened leading up to that was all very positive stuff and signs of TTK, which is clearly my word and phrase of the day. I'll keep it going the rest of the week, but you got to have that. The best ones do. I mean, think about how hard it's been the last 4 or 5 years to beat Tennessee at home, even when you have a lead, starting with Drew Gilbert on Friday against Wright State in 21. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. Very tough.
And even before Tennessee blew it in the bottom of the 7th, Georgia was slowly starting to build some momentum. Tennessee jumps out to a 5-0 lead and then hadn't scored in a couple of innings. Georgia scores 2 in the bottom of the 5th. They hit a solo homer off of Blanco to end his day in the bottom of the 6th. And so it's 5-3. The starting pitcher is out of the game for Tennessee now. And you can kind of feel Georgia's off. Here comes Georgia's offense. What's that song that they sing in Athens? Here's those Bulldogs coming down the track, whatever that song is. That's what it felt like on Sunday as Blanco was getting out of the game. And they swung back in the top of the 7th when Reese Chapman doubled with 1 out. And then Manny Marin, who was red hot all weekend, we'll talk about him at some point. He hits an RBI single to left field to give another insurance run. So I liked the grit and determination that I saw throughout the weekend because it wasn't where it needed to be last year. It wasn't what it needed to be on Sunday against Kent State and against Wright State, but it's exactly what it needed to be against Georgia. Georgia just came down to an execution problem. They just did not execute, and that's why they lost to Georgia at the end of the day. And I know it's frustrating, but I think that's a step in the right direction. But with all that being said, I did not intend to be overly positive the first 15 minutes of the podcast, although I really do believe Tennessee's team took a step forward even in the midst of the frustration. They blew a wonderful opportunity to make a statement to begin SEC play because folks were kind of wondering, man, what is this Tennessee team going to look like throughout conference play? What is, where's this team going to be under Josh Elander throughout SEC play? That there were already those questions there because of how they looked in non-conference play, and you've got this red hot Georgia team that's top 10 in the country. It's on the road. Nobody's expecting you to really win the series, and the series was right up there for grabs, and they let it slip through their fingers. What do you look at as the biggest reason as to what went wrong? A lot of people are putting it on Josh Elander, which is totally fair. And then obviously Braden Krenzel did not have his best outing. And I don't mean to put the entire series on Braden because the offense could have been better in game 2, won that game, and then it doesn't come down to what Braden Krenzel does on Sunday. But do you believe that Josh Elander kept Braden Krenzel in there too long? That feels like an easy yes. He did leave it in there too long. When would you have pulled Krenzel in that situation? And just what do you feel went most wrong for Tennessee in that Sunday loss? I mean, it's hard to get away from Krenzel there.
Yeah, the 2 walks in a row, he's got to come out, especially with how it looked. I mean, he was every bit of, I think he touched 97 last week. And he comes in, the ball's wet. He hits the backstop multiple times in warmups. He wasn't comfortable from the jump. But I think he worked through that inning. He's back out there for a second inning, but it wasn't there, right? He was like 91, 92, where if he's throwing in pro ball and he touches a 97, has 6 days off, and then he's back out there and he's 5 miles an hour slower, topping 92, he's getting pulled immediately for precautionary reasons, for injury. Now, I know the rain plays a factor, but you could see it. The fastball didn't have the normal life. The breaking ball was nowhere close. Didn't have the spin. Obviously, when you're not as confident because of the rain and how you feel, whatever, you're not going to rip it as hard. So then it just becomes a cement mixer. And then he walked 2 in a row. I know it's bases loaded, but you hadn't used Rudy. You didn't use Hindi all weekend. Frederick could have thrown again. Heck, they even had Arvidsson down there. I wouldn't have brought him in on Sunday. Not right now. Maybe in May or June. Absolutely, sure. But right now, I would, especially having not used, and they didn't look comfortable with any of the lefties, Appenzeller, RV, and Blanco for the first 5 innings. So at that point, it was 2 righties coming up, but even the righties didn't look comfortable with Tennessee's lefties. They had hit the righties better and took better swings off of all the righties all weekend. So obviously that's a learning point for Josh. It's like, I know that's your guy, and Krenzel had been phenomenal the last 2 outings, like dang near unhittable, but it wasn't the same guy in that situation. You've got to get him out of there. You only use 2 relievers the entire weekend outside of him to that point. You used Arvidsson Friday and Appenzeller Saturday, and that was it. So it's like you've got a full, fresh bullpen, or I guess you used Frederick too Friday, but his was a shorter stint. So that's a learning moment, and he's done it a couple times. That will be something that he grows, and he could be the Tennessee coach 20 years from now, and he'll make a decision where he left a guy in too long or pulled a guy too quick, yada yada. But situations like that, you're just better off taking your chances with somebody who maybe somebody had their jacket on, wasn't as wet at that point. Or, just a different look. Slow the game down, stop the momentum. It's still going to be bases loaded, but it just happens so quick, right? And good teams, you got to slow them down. You got to take your time out. I think they did do a mound visit, but I'm switching pitchers there, and maybe Rudy comes in and gets a big strikeout. But at that point, it was just so clear that it wasn't Krenzel's day. I'm making the move.
You know how Josh Elander is. He is Mr. Optimistic, Mr. Glass half full, which I love. I'm not critiquing because I'm the same way. I am glass half full until I absolutely can't be anymore. And there are probably plenty of times, especially given the job that I have, where I'm analyzing things and I'm giving too much of the benefit of the doubt, overly optimistic, just believe the best outcome is going to happen. So I appreciate that of Josh Elander quite a bit. I wonder if in those type of situations, in a weird way, that hurts him, because nobody had more belief in that stadium that Braden Krenzel was going to work out of that jam and turn it around than Josh Elander. Just knowing his personality, knowing the way he operates, thinks, talks. Do you think that played a role into him sticking with him? Because you hear all of his answers like, hey, this is my guy, that's my guy, I'm going to stick with him, I have a bunch of belief in him. Now, I know that part of his post-game quote kind of made the rounds. He also said that he liked the matchup with the righty. I don't know why he liked the matchup with the righty. He did not detail why, but he said we liked that matchup. The righty put a good swing on it. It is what it is I'm paraphrasing, is essentially what he said. But do you almost think that in those scenarios he has such belief in his guys that he thinks they're going to work their way out of it, that's maybe why he keeps them in too long?
In that situation, yeah, it did hurt him. But the same could be said when he looks like the genius, because I mean, there's coaches around the country after Arvidsson's UCLA outing that would have bumped him down the totem pole. But he's been run out there in that same role the last 3 weeks and been dominant. He's been Brandon Arvidsson. So, there's two sides to that coin. I just think in the heat of the moment, you kind of got to take your predetermined notions and even the matchups out of it. And it's like, what do I see right now? I see that it's not coming out of his hand the way that I know it does normally. And that should probably overrule the decision to ride with him. But I think more times than not, that will be a positive thing. But in cases like this, yeah, it absolutely hurt him.
Yeah, it was just clear that Krenzel didn't have it. I mean, even during warmups, I was not there, but our Georgia baseball beat writer at 247, Olivia Sayer, she was there, and she tweeted that, and I believe it was raining when Krenzel took the mound, but during his warm-up pitches when he came in from the bullpen, she tweeted out that he threw like 2 consecutive pitches back to the backstop, and the Georgia fans were getting on him for that. So he just did not have his command, and I thought it was pretty clear there a couple of batters prior to when Josh elected to go to the bullpen that he should have made that move. But it's baseball. I think that's the other part of this that people are forgetting, is that this does happen in baseball. Not making it right, not saying it's okay, but every move you make to the bullpen is not going to work out for you. It can be the right matchup on paper, and it just not work out for whatever reason. And there's also an element to where Like, I know everybody's blaming Josh Elander, but Braden Krenzel's just got to execute better. And he knows that, right? Krenzel knows that. But he's got to execute better because it can be the right matchup on paper. I mean, Krenzel was red hot going into that game in terms of his previous outings, and you felt really good about Krenzel closing out a big series win for you, and he just didn't execute. So, yes, the coach should have got him out sooner, but the player also has to execute a little bit better in that moment as well. And I'm sure it's something that Josh Elander will learn from going forward. Did you think that he left Blanco in too long?
One batter too long, but yeah. I know that was the lefty, so really same reasoning. They liked the matchup with the lefty, but I mean, he was over 100 pitches. I think he was at like 105 when that at bat started. I don't have as big a problem with that one, given you still have the lead, and that's your starter. He's been out there. He's been throwing strikes. Try to squeeze one more hitter out of him. That's going to happen from time to time. It happened with Coons, I think, against UCLA. They sent him back out for one more, and he gave up the homer. But the next week they did it, and he got a, his last out, finish your lunch, as they would say over there in their baseball terminology. That's another one. If you could have it back, then you would, knowing we weren't going to use Hindi, I would just use Hindi right there, right? But yeah, I just think generally on a Sunday needs to be a bit quicker of a leash. There's no game the next day. You got to use the entire thing and worry about the next inning when the next inning comes. You cannot plan for jack on Sunday because it ain't over until the umpires leave the field. And he knows that. He's the one that dang preached it to me. So it's just in practice, and by practice I mean in game for Elander, in real games, there's a difference between being an assistant coach and a head coach. And there's a lot more in that big old noggin of his going on in the brain. And he's got to learn to navigate through those type of decisions. But here's the other side of that coin is Tony Vitello could have done the exact same thing, and we probably aren't analyzing it quite the same way, right? But because you're a first-year head coach, because when you took over, everything you do is going to be looked at under a microscope, and you don't have that savings account, that bankroll of good decisions for us to say, this one didn't work out, but he knows what he's doing, right? Tony made all kinds of bad decisions last year. All kinds of left Snead in too long, left Franklin in too long, didn't go to whoever quick enough, yada, yada. But it was Tony V, right? He's got a natty. We give him a break, right? So Elander doesn't necessarily have that luxury yet. But we need to, I'm not saying we need to give the guy grace. We just need to try to look at it as unbiased as possible. So, which I think we're doing. I'm not saying that we are. I'm just making a note that as we evaluate these decisions, we can acknowledge that, okay, we may be looking at this because of the situation as a whole, and not necessarily like, maybe we should just ask ourselves, is it fair to look at this in that way, or is it not? This one, I think it's absolutely fair.
Well, I think it is fair to give him grace because grace and calling it like we see it are two different things. And I'm not necessarily talking about us because we're not the ones saying outrageous things on social media about Josh Elander. But when I say that I think it is fair to give him grace, I'm talking to those who are saying outrageous things on social media. He's young. He's a first-time head coach, and he took over an impossible situation from an expectation standpoint. So does Josh Elander need to be better? Absolutely. Does that mean you need to rake him over the coals and put him in the center of the town square and tar and feather him? No, it doesn't. There can be a line that you walk there. There can be some grace involved while pointing out, hey, he could have done this better, and we'll see if he learns from it. And I think that he will. No doubt that was the wrong decision to keep Krenzel in a little too long, but Krenzel also needs to execute his pitches better. And like I said earlier, it doesn't come down to just one moment on the weekend. There were several other moments that if Tennessee had done better, then it walks away with a series win as well. There are also some positives, and we're going to talk about all that on the other side of this quick timeout here on the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. Welcome back into the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. I'm Ben McKee, and I'm joined by Will Heflin here on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. We've got 2 hours and 13 minutes before Tennessee gets underway with Eastern Kentucky in its midweek game. Apologies for getting this podcast getting it out there a little later than we would like. It's a very hectic time of year between the transition from the SEC basketball tournament to the NCAA tournament. My youngest turned 2 on Sunday, so we had a birthday party in Huntsville, Alabama. His birthday was on Monday, yesterday. So happy birthday to my little guy, Jalen, Lightning McQueen's biggest fan on the planet. But because of birthday and travel and basketball, spring football starting, just unable to get a podcast out a little sooner and when we would like to. So please forgive me for that. Not Will's fault, but my fault. So please forgive me for that. And for those of you who are listening, either as Tennessee is getting underway with Eastern Kentucky or a little bit later, maybe after Tennessee and Eastern Kentucky have already played. No Henry Ford tonight. Mr. Heflin Henry is sick here on a Tuesday after he had a phenomenal weekend in Athens. He was one of a couple of guys who had big-time series down there in Athens. Manny Marin continues to be red hot. He hit .462. He was statistically Tennessee's best hitter over the weekend. Blake Grimmer came to life. Reese Chapman had a couple of big hits. Blaine Brown had a couple of big hits, as you mentioned earlier. And I'm surprised to see this when I look here on the final stats from the weekend. It feels like Henry Ford hit about 600 over the weekend. He actually only hit .214, only had 3 hits. But all 3 of his hits were big ones. I believe all 3 drove in runs, if I'm not mistaken, and 2 of them were home runs.
That's the way to do it. If you're going to hit .214, hit that .214 because it didn't feel like a .214. So I guess he was only getting out when there was nobody on base. But you're right. You mentioned the guys who had the best weekends offensively. Look, I have probably been more critical than anybody on Reese Chapman. He's been phenomenal. I'll put my hand up. I was wrong on him, at least for now. I mean, he's been unbelievable. Left on left, that double opposite way off Ishikawa was a beautiful swing, similar to Blaine, right? When those two guys, when your power lefties are hitting doubles the other way, and Grimmer did it with the homer, that's when they're locked in, right? Tyler Myatt, when he was so hot to start the year, what was it? Dead center home run, left center home run, left center double, right? Right now, it's a lot of ground balls to second base. That's why he's struggling, not to get too hitting technical. And it's not that simple. I'm just saying that's the result of when things are going, a swing is dialed in and when it's not necessarily. But he's been the same thing I was saying about Blaine, even more so with Reese. He's not really chasing. The only thing he's swinging through is a well-executed changeup, which you're always going to do anyways. You're actually supposed to swing through that if you're out front early in the count, because if you keep your hands back and just try to make contact, you're just going to hit a weak 5 hopper to short or something. But the swing and miss is down, the strikeouts are down. Phenomenal weekend for Reese. I will put my hand up on that one. But you mentioned Manny. He's been phenomenal. The hand speed is unreal. We harped on it. We were like, just give him a minute. Just give him a minute. The guy's hand is hurt. That is impossible to hit with a hurt hand. Well, he feels better now. Look at it. So he's kind of had a little coming out party this weekend. Well, really starting last Sunday and just carried it over. But even Garrett Wright, man, didn't have as great of a weekend, but had some really nice moments. And I love him in the leadoff spot for now, especially with the way Jay is struggling. Jay is still putting together good at-bats. He is just missing the pitches he needs to hit. And he hit a couple hard this weekend. I think he did get a hit or 2 up the middle, but just not finding enough barrels right now for him. I tend to think he'll work his way out of it to just stick with him. But you said Ford wasn't playing tonight. It's actually a good thing. Give the guy, he's been carrying all the weight offensively. If there's one guy that doesn't really need a midweek, it's him. I hate to say that, but Be good to kind of see the lineup shuffled with him out of it, and hopefully get some ABs for guys that need it.
Well, here is the lineup with Henry Ford out tonight.
And must have posted it while I was talking because I didn't have it, or you got it, off the black market.
I got it off the black market, but people listening have already seen this lineup, so we'll have a quick detour in our Georgia takeaways to share the lineup and get your thoughts on this lineup. And look, it's just a midweek lineup. I don't think this is any indication of what's to come this weekend, but just for funsies, here's tonight's lineup. Garrett Wright leading off and playing center. Blaine Brown hitting second and playing left. Blake Grimmer slides up to the 3-hole and is playing first. Reese Chapman hitting fourth, playing right. Manny Marin playing shortstop, hitting fifth. Levi Clark is behind the plate for a second straight game. I find that interesting. I guess just because it's a midweek, maybe it's just happenstance that it's a midweek and they want to get Stone off his feet at least once during the weekend. So maybe just a coincidence that it's back-to-back games. I also thought Stone had some pretty big moments throughout the weekend, even if he's defined by one poor moment. But Levi Clark hitting sixth and catching. Jay Abernathy playing second base and hitting seventh. Trent Grenlinger, the freshman catcher, will be the DH and hit eighth. And then Ariel Antigua is playing third base and batting ninth. In the original lineup, I believe the original lineup had, they shuffled it around pretty good because Ariel was going to play second. He's now playing third. Jay was going to play center. He's now playing second. Garrett Wright was the DH. Now he's playing center, and Grenlinger is the DH. So they shuffled it around pretty good. Anything of note, or I'll just go ahead and ask you the question for what you would like to see moving forward. Any I'll just ask it for you very broad. Just any lineup tweaks that you would maybe consider or go through with after the Georgia series?
Manny moved up, which he has. And you're right, even without the last at bat of the weekend, Stone had a phenomenal weekend. He had the big swing on Friday. Could be just they're going to split it, and like Levi had 2 hits. They want to see if they can continue to get him going, and maybe Stone will pinch hit in the DH spot, or heck, he may play first if Grimmer gets 2 knocks his first at bat or something. I don't want to ever take an opponent lightly, and by the time you're listening to this, we probably already know the result, but I will say Eastern Kentucky 7-13 should be an opportunity for the Vols to get some guys in there. I'm not saying they have to score 20 runs like they did on Tennessee Tech, but you'd like to think there will be opportunity for other guys to get in there. And if it doesn't go well, then I guess that's an opportunity to take guys out who don't seem to be performing. So we'll see how it goes. I agree. Right now, I feel like they're in a good spot at catcher. Like both of them gave you reason to feel optimistic going into next weekend of SEC play. And we've both said it a ton. We know that Levi needs to be involved if they're going to reach their ceiling, right? And he was out of there Friday, Saturday, but it was really good to see him have 2 knocks on Sunday. And even his first at-bat wasn't a knock, but it was a 2-strike swing where he put the ball in play, and he was out front, but he put the barrel on it. Didn't result in a hit, but that's one of those like little wins that can really stack, right? And that had been a strikeout in weeks prior, but he was out front of the changeup, kept the hands back and hit it to center, just didn't fall.
And that followed, didn't he have a walk late in the midweek game on Tuesday as well? He came in and had that late walk.
I'll take your word for it.
I don't even remember who they played last Tuesday.
20 run. It was Tennessee Tech. And
that's right.
For anybody who made it to the end of that game, tip of the cap to you.
Thank you. I made it to the end of the game as I was sitting in the press box. So thank you. I appreciate your tip of the hat. But yeah, he had a walk late in that game, and I asked Josh Elander post game. I was like, "Do you think that can be a good sign of things to come?" And of course, Josh was very optimistic, as we talked about earlier. But it proved to play out that way. It's seeing the results on Sunday makes me think that Tuesday's result, even if it's just a measly old walk against Tennessee Tech, didn't have at least a little bit of an impact.
Yeah, I mean, when you're going as bad as he was going, then you'll take wins.
Well, the point is he wasn't seeing the baseball well, and if you're drawing a walk, you're seeing the baseball well. That was the thought behind that. Even against the Tennessee Techs of the world, if you're not seeing it well, you'll continue to not see it well. But he saw it better that night, and I think it carried over to the weekend. And as we have talked about, and to me, he's Manny 2.0. Like what we talked about when Manny was struggling, how you kind of got to force the issue, and you got to keep pushing and hope that he eventually comes around, which I think we both think he will eventually come around. It's just a matter of to what extent. He's too talented to just plop over on the bench and leave for dead the rest of the season. You've got to try and push him in there and get him going, because as you just said, the ceiling is much higher with him in the lineup than with him not meeting his own expectations this season.
Yeah, and there's still, I mean, outside of third base, right field, and wherever right is, like, I guess the spot in the lineup for Blaine, I mean, the jobs are not completely decided yet. I don't even think we're close on most of them. I mean, we have a pretty good idea, but it's anything but settled to this point. So you've got, like you said, you got to keep forcing the issue, mixing guys in there like Myatt and Newstrom are both struggling, but they need to continue to get opportunities. You know, if Jay continues to struggle, we'll see him switch it up by moving him around. Or giving him a day off, stuff like that. Like, they're going to keep doing it. They have to.
What'd you see from Teagan Friday night in the win? For me, he just continues to – he's not pitching bad, but I think there's still just so much left in the tank for him. There's another level he can reach, and for me, he just leaves me wanting a little bit more each outing. It's kind of where I'm at with Teagan right now. He pitches into the 5th inning on Friday night against the really good Georgia lineup. Only gave up 6 hits, but it continues to be a little bit feast or famine. 6 strikeouts, no walks, which I love the no walks, but 6 hits, which led to 4 earned runs, and he did give up 1 home run.
Yeah, Teagan's first 3-ish innings, first time through the order, first time and a half through the order, was the best I'd seen him all year. He had all 3 pitches for strikes. He was not missing in the heart of the plate. He obviously was not throwing balls because he didn't walk anybody. He looked phenomenal. And then, like can happen with anybody against a good offense, kind of hit a wall. And as soon as they figured him out and he let them get ahead in a couple counts there late in his outing, they made him pay for it. So I'm with you on Teagan. I was encouraged by how great he looked out of the gate, because that was the best he had looked to start an outing and get Tennessee into the game. And that's why you saw an early lead for the Vols, which was phenomenal. I know Georgia went and took the lead back, but then Tennessee took it back again. So overall, I would say competitive start for, I don't know if it was technically a quality start. I think you got to get through 5 innings, but it was a competitive start for Teagan, especially coming in. It's like, all the hype around Georgia's number 1 offense, you know, and he kind of exposed them a little bit. It's like, hey, maybe playing the 254th ranked non-conference schedule, you didn't see an arm like Teagan Coons, and it certainly showed. So it definitely took them a minute to get to him in terms of his velocity and stuff. Like, his velocity was up Friday. I think we saw a 98 from Teagan, maybe a 99. I know we saw 100 from Mac on Saturday because Elander said it during his live interview. So building block for Teagan again, which we said, I think we said that 2 weeks ago, but that's the reality of it. Like, he's still a young cat, and you can see it right there with him. But like you said, kind of that, you know, once you're further into the game and guys are seeing you for the second and third time, it doesn't matter what you do. It's going to be harder to get him out. But I think he will continue to grow in terms of being able to find different ways to get those guys out later in your outing when you can't just rear back and find that 98 like you had maybe in this first or second inning.
I tell you, Brennan Arvidsson, he's going to make himself a lot of money in the draft this summer.
Yeah, he's just not fun at
He's
that.
just scratching the surface of what he's going to do this season.
Yeah, no, he's got no clue what he's doing. And I mean that with all due respect. I know he's an older guy on this team, certainly, but you can see it by the way he pitches. He's got no idea what he's doing out there. He is still very raw, in my opinion. But the breaking ball is probably the best pitch in the country, and his fastball has life. If people hit him hard, it's kind of lucky, in my opinion. Like, he can be dominant, and when he throws enough strikes, he's dominant. It's literally that simple for Harvey. And if somebody does get him, then you tip your cap. But you can see what's there for him. I thought the pitching Friday, for the most part, was the stuff was top tier, and then they executed enough to give Tennessee a win.
And you saw the power from the Tennessee lineup in that game
all weekend.
All weekend. Henry Ford, Stone Lawless, Manny Marin all hit home runs. Manny added a double, and they got off to the good start when Henry Ford had a 2-run single in the third. So it was a really good team win for Tennessee on Friday. You look at Saturday, the bats just did not come to life. And Landon Mack, I continue to say I feel similarly to how I do with Teagan. I kind of view them through the same prism of, man, you see the raw talent there, and they're having good seasons. They are. But there's just a little bit more in that tank, maybe a lot more in that tank in terms of potential that they can tap into. There's another level or two that they can reach because they are pitching well, but they leave you wanting a little bit more. And Landon, his stat line sticks out even more than Teagan's. He pitched into the 6th inning, only 4 strikeouts, but he gave up 4 walks. He gave up 9 hits, and somehow that led to the same amount of runs that Teagan gave up, because that's baseball for you, Susan. But Landon, I love the grit, the determination that he pitches with. His pickoff move has become a real weapon for him. That helped him out of one jam. And again, his stuff was there. You talk about Teagan's velo being up. Josh Elander pointed out that he saw 100 on the scoreboard from Landon on Saturday. So the stuff is there. It's just the command. They can hone it in a little bit more. And once they do, they're really going to take off. They're going to turn a good season into a great season. And the good news, I'm saying all this, it's midway through March. It's still really early.
Yeah, and they're both sophomores. It's not like they're, 3rd or 4th year guys. So this is kind of to be expected. Here's my thing with Mac, and we kind of argued about it. Not really argued, but touched on it over the weekend. We got to have something to debate every weekend, and this weekend it was back to this. In the first inning, Mac, I think he struck out 2 of the 3, or he had a nice first inning, and just let go of too much emotion, in my opinion, for your first start of SEC play. And in that situation, knowing that Georgia's coming off a loss, I feel like it was a nobody on base strikeout, and he kind of let it rip. And that's who he is. Like, I get it. He's got the swag. But it was kind of the Liam Doyle thing last year, where it's like, hey, you got to understand, you may be, 20, 21 years old. You have an endless amount of physical energy, but your emotional energy is limited, and you've got to conserve it, especially as a starter. It was the pickoff attempt, wasn't it? That was when he kind of exploded. You've got to understand, is like, A, thinking about the 6th inning, not the first, and B, thinking about, do I need to give this offense that's number one, coming into this? We talked about the record or the schedule and whether or not that's legit, but I think we can all agree they've got plenty of danger in their offense. Do I need to give them extra motivation? And this is my personal opinion. I know I've spewed it on here all the time. I just think that plays a role. I think it matters. And what they do the very next inning, first hitter, bang, home run, humble pie. I hate that. I hate that so much, because the game gets even very quickly. Not always the immediate next inning, but it's hard for me to believe that what he did after his pickoff move, which was cool, that's great, you got an out, congratulations. But you come out and you give up solo, and I'm like, did the game just get you back immediately? And for me, as kind of a traditionalist and, they may think I'm old uncle now. I guess I don't really see myself that way, but if I were to go sit in the dugout now, they'd be like, "Who's this uncle?" I'd probably be the old head, and that stuff happens all the time, and it matters. And so I think for Landon, like, dude, you got to be thinking months ahead, not even an inning ahead at times, and just understand that, like, yes, we want to win these games, but you're out there trying to get better and refine your craft, and your stuff is unbelievable, but you're a little bit raw. So why don't we keep the emotions in check a little bit longer and focus on executing a pitch? Let the hitters be crazy. Let the hitters, we saw Dominican Republic and we've seen Venezuela be two of the most like demonstrative, fun party baseball teams you've ever seen in your life. They make 2022 Tennessee look like nothing. I mean, they're in fair territory before the ball lands when they hit a home run. The entire dugout is like on the first baseline running with their hitters up. If Tennessee did that, they would get
thrown in jail.
They would get thrown in jail on X and maybe in real life. But anyways.
Are you okay with that in the World Baseball Classic?
Like yeah, I'm fine with it. Let the hitters do whatever they want. The pitchers don't do that, Ben. The pitchers don't do that because you have to be so fine and so technical in your craft. That's why I didn't love it with Liam Doyle, although that was who he is and he was phenomenal and had an unbelievable season. His last few of the season he got. And I think part of that was he spent a ton of emotional energy, both in the regional and the entire season before that. And I'm not saying Mac needs to be somebody different than who he is. I'm just saying have a little presence of mind in those situations. And I think that will help him get deeper into games and not lose the command like he did. But aside from all that, I know I've rambled. He was unbelievable working out of trouble. And he's done that twice now. He did it against Arizona State. That Saturday, constant traffic, and just they can't get home on him. A good pitcher is tough to score on. You may get on base, you may have some really good ABs, you may grind it out, but man, when there's runners in scoring position, he bears down. And they finally did get to him, but I thought it was overall a really good outing from Mac. Take out a couple of the walks, take out losing your mind in the first inning over nothing. And we'll be cooking with grease.
They'll be cooking with grease this week because it is a very busy week. It is a 5-game homestand beginning this afternoon, which has already happened by the time people are hearing these words leave my mouth. But you got Eastern Kentucky today, or yesterday, whenever you are listening to this, Missouri this weekend, a Missouri team that you are better than, but I like what Carrick Jackson is doing. I think that is an improved Missouri team, a Missouri team that is the best that it has been in a couple of years. I still don't know if it's an NCAA tournament team, but they were just so bad that they're off to a better start this year is my point. And they were swept by Auburn. They're very competitive. 2 competitive games and then kind of got blown out in the series finale. So that'll be a tougher weekend than I think people will automatically think when they see that on the schedule. And then I don't know who they played next Tuesday. You could tell me they're playing Harvard, and I would believe you for next Tuesday's midweek game. Between basketball and baseball and spring practice starting, I'm taking it a week. I'm taking it a week at a time.
I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint of who they're playing next Tuesday. And this may be dead wrong, but if Jordan Gainey was your hint,
it'd be USC Upstate.
There you go.
I do remember that now that you
who was it that left Tennessee and had a great career at USC Upstate?
I think you're right, but I think you're thinking of DJ Burns, who went to
NC State.
He went to Wofford first, though, and had a great career.
Wofford. I'm thinking.
I don't think, unless I'm just completely blanking on somebody, which I don't think I am. They haven't had anybody leave and go to USC Upstate.
Maybe there was somebody from the Knoxville area then, because somebody at USC Upstate, like either last year or 2 years ago.
Are you thinking there's two people I think you're thinking of? Drew Pember went to UNC Asheville.
That's right. That's who I was thinking of.
But Burns was also at Wofford is a South Carolina school as well. So
I wasn't thinking of Burns because, yeah, it was Pember.
Right. But busy week for Tennessee athletics and Tennessee baseball. Will and I will be back here at some point this week. I don't know. I'm traveling to Philly tomorrow on Wednesday, and then we've got media all day Thursday. But we'll squeeze in a preview baseball pod for the weekend, share some reactions from Tennessee's midweek game against Eastern Kentucky. Going to be a cold afternoon at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Patrick Brown will be pinch hitting for me this weekend when Tennessee does host Missouri. But the point that I was getting to is that it's an important week. Tennessee needs to get better this week, Will, because I know Vanderbilt doesn't look like typical Vanderbilt right now. They're also sorting through some issues, but that's going to be a heavyweight fight next week in Nashville. And fair or unfair, there's a lot of pressure on Tennessee, I think, to win next weekend because of the Josh Elander narrative that's kind of going around, him being a first-year coach, rookie head coach, already some questionable decisions that fans have not been a fan of. So I think Josh Elander needs to win that series. Not that it's going to, he loses that series, that means he's a bad coach. That means Tennessee's not going to make the tournament. Not in that sense, but just from the outside narrative perspective, but also kind of needs to put the athletic department on his back because, unfortunately for Vol fans, Vanderbilt has had Tennessee's number of late in just about any way you slice it.
It's a fair point. And if Tennessee basketball doesn't make it through the first weekend, which I hope they do, but it's no guarantee, all your people that don't listen to this podcast who are more casual fans of baseball will be tuned in and that'll be the first series they see. And if it doesn't go well, then those annoying voices are only going to get louder, but you and I don't care about that. They need to play well and win a series in Nashville for their hosting resume, for their SEC standings resume. Screw all the outside noise. But they need to handle business with Missouri first, get back to 500 or a game above it, and then we can worry about Tiny Tim when we go over there. But yeah, Vanderbilt has had an unbelievable run this year as an athletic department. And, we'll see once Clark Lee is without Pavia, but they have Jared Curtis coming in. It seems like they've got some momentum over there. We'll see when the league kind of adjusts to his offense, if he's able to sustain that. But the basketball team, I don't think is going anywhere. That head coach is really good, and they play a style of basketball that's not a good matchup for us on the hardwood, and I'll leave it at that. And Tennessee baseball has kind of been flipping the script on Vanderbilt. I know they ended up winning the series last year and got the number 1 seed, but Tennessee still made it further. So the last 5-6 years, Tennessee has been the better program in baseball, just objectively. And subjectively, it's not even been remotely close in my eyes because Vanderbilt sucks. And so with that note, we'll get out of here before I get really fired up and say something I shouldn't.
Well, don't you know that Vanderbilt fans would rather win the season series with Tennessee and run rule them in the SEC tournament than make it further in the NCAA tournament?
Well, that's dumb. I'd rather win the national championship. Vanderbilt can sweep us if you tell me we're going to win the national championship.
Well, I was referencing just last season when Vandy had a great deal of success against Tennessee in the regular season and in Hoover, but then lost as the number 1 overall seed.
I think they had I think they had the better year. Had Tennessee made it to Omaha, then no question. But Tennessee won, no games in the Super, so it was kind of close. But we didn't lose in our own regional as the number 1 overall seed. So to that.
In fact, Tennessee won the national championship in that exact scenario the year prior.
Yeah, broke the curse. Vanderbilt just wanted to start us a new one, didn't they? For Tennessee to break it again.
All right, I'm going to get Will Heflin out of here before he says something that gets both of us in trouble, and I already have enough on my plate. Will, my man, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thanks for helping me not get canceled.
For Will Heflin, I'm Ben McKee. This has been another edition of the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com.